He hadn't touched a gun in 4 years. Not since the day he killed an innocent boy by mistake. Caleb Thornton was a broken man, running from his past, convinced he deserved nothing but loneliness. Then he rode into Silver Creek for medicine and heard a woman scream in an alley. What happened next? He spent his last dollar to save her. By the next morning, he was ready to die for her. This is a story about how one act of courage can change everything. How a man who lost his soul found it again in the eyes of a woman who refused to break. This story reminds us that no matter how far we've fallen, redemption is always possible. The past doesn't define us. Our choices today do. Sometimes the person who saves us is actually looking for someone to save them too. If you believe in second chances and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever met someone who changed your life when you least expected it? Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story. And share this with someone who needs a little hope today. For 4 long years, he hadn't touched a gun, haunted by a past he couldn't outrun. But one look at a brave woman cornered in an alley changed everything. That day, he spent his last dollar on her. By the next morning, he was ready to kill for her. This is a story about how a broken man found something worth fighting for. If you believe in second chances, stick around and let me know in the comments what town you're listening from. Caleb rode into Silver Creek with a winter storm brewing in the sky and a storm of his own brewing in his soul. The town was just a handful of buildings huddled against the cold, a place where folks were just trying to survive. All he wanted was medicine for his sick cattle from the town clinic. Simple as that. He took 3 steps toward the door, and then he heard it. The sound of a woman's cry being cut short. His feet moved toward the alley before his mind even knew why. 2 men had a woman pinned against the brick wall. The big one was twisting her arm, his breath smelling of cheap whiskey. The other fella was dumping her medical bag into the snow. "Just sign the papers, darlin'," the big one growled. "Mr. Blackwood is tired of waiting." She spit right in his face and told him to go to hell. Before the man could hit her, a quiet voice cut through the cold air. "Don't!" Both men turned, stunned. The woman's eyes, the color of good whiskey, locked on Caleb. "Who in the hell are you?" the big fella demanded. "Just a fella needing medicine," Caleb said calmly. "This ain't your concern, so keep walking." Well, now it is. The big man, Jennings, let the woman go and stepped toward Caleb, puffing out his chest. "You must be new here. Garrett Blackwood owns this town, and that includes you." Caleb stood his ground. "He don't own me." Jennings' hand started moving toward his gun. "Out here, everybody belongs to somebody, not me." There was a stillness about Caleb, a cold confidence that made Jennings pause. He saw a man who knew violence all too well. "What's your name, stranger?" "Caleb Thornton." The name hit Jennings like a punch to the gut. All the color drained from his face. "Thornton," he whispered. "The bounty hunter." "I thought you were dead. You heard wrong." "That was business with Mr. Blackwood," Jennings stammered. "Well, take your business somewhere else," Caleb said. "The boss wants this property." Caleb took a single step forward, and both men flinched like they'd been struck. The lady said no. That ought to be the end of it. Jennings knew he was beat. He looked at his partner, then back at the fire in the woman's eyes, and finally at the angel of death standing before him. "This ain't over," he spat before they disappeared into the snow. Caleb turned to the woman. She stood tall, refusing to show the fear she must have felt. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," she said, her voice a little shaky. "Thank you." "Who are you really?" "Just a man named Caleb. But they were scared of you. They should be." She knelt to pick up her scattered medicine bottles, her hands trembling just a bit. "My name is Eleanor Weston," she said. "Most folks call me Ellie. This clinic was my father's. And what does a man like Blackwood want with it?" "Water," she said with a bitter laugh. "There's a spring underneath this building. In this part of the country, that's better than a gold mine. So why not sell and leave?" Her head snapped up, her amber eyes blazing. "This place is my father's legacy. He served this town for 20 years. I will not let that bully take it from me." Caleb saw a lifetime of struggle in her face. "You've had a hard time of it." You have no idea, she whispered. You should get out of Silver Creek, Mr. Thornton, before Blackwood sends more men. And what'll happen to you if I go? They'll be back, she said, plain and simple. They've been pushing harder every week. This was the first time they touched me. It won't be the last. What about the sheriff? He's Blackwood's cousin. The whole town is scared of him. Blackwood owns their jobs, their homes. If you cross him, you lose everything. Her eyes met his. I'm the only one left saying no. Caleb looked at this small, tough woman with her worn-out coat and her fiery spirit. He'd seen that same look in folks who had nothing left to lose and refused to break. You got a gun? He asked. A little one, my father's. Do you know how to use it? I know how to point it. Good enough for now, he said. When you close up shop, you need to go stay with a friend. I can't ask you to get involved in this, she said. You didn't ask. I'm offering. She looked at him for a long time, trying to figure him out. Why? She finally asked. Why help me? Caleb thought about the boy he'd killed by mistake 4 years ago. He thought about a man running from his own ghosts. A man gets tired of running from himself, he said quietly. Maybe it's just time I stood for something again. That's all the answer I've got. Ellie seemed to understand. She gave a small nod. My friend, Mrs. Price, runs the boarding house. I can stay there. Good, Caleb said. I'll walk you over there. And then what will you do? Wait here for Blackwood's men. They could send 10 men. You'd be all alone. It wouldn't be the first time. She saw he meant it. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the biggest fool. Maybe a little of both, he said with a hint of a smile. Inside her small clinic, Ellie gathered the medicine for his cattle. Did your father teach you all this? He asked. Since I was 12 years old, she said. He wanted me to know how to save people. She handed him the package. What about you, Caleb? Any family? No, ma'am. Just me. Sounds lonely. It is. The package is $2, she said. And thank you for everything. Caleb left the money but didn't touch the package. Tell me about Blackwood, he said. How many men? Where does he hole up? Ellie took a deep breath. You're fixing to do this, ain't you? He just looked at her. Garrett Blackwood showed up 10 years ago with a pocket full of money and bought this town piece by piece. He keeps about 15 men, but 5 or 6 are real trouble. Jennings is the meanest of 'em. She told him they guard Blackwood's mansion, a big cattle baron's place north of town he ran the old owner out of. He's got a son, Marcus, she added, 19, and drinks heavy, hates his daddy. A weak spot, maybe. Caleb, you need to hear me. If you cross him, he won't ever stop. There's a first time for everything, Caleb said, grabbing the package. But Ellie shook her head. Not with him. Over at the boarding house, Mrs. Hazel Price opened the door before he could even knock. 63 years old, with silver hair and eyes as sharp as a tack. She looked Caleb up and down. You're the one who ran off Jennings, she stated. Yes, ma'am. Heard you were a bounty hunter. I used to be. And what are you now? A hero? Something like that. Mrs. Price looked at Ellie, who was shivering beside him. You trust this man? He's the first person who's tried to help in 8 months, Ellie said. The old woman stepped aside. Well, get on in here. Supper's in an hour, and I've got questions. The house was warm and smelled of fresh bread. It felt like a real home, a place Caleb knew he didn't belong. Sit, Mrs. Price ordered, pointing to a parlor chair after sending Ellie upstairs. She settled into the opposite chair with a groan. Bad knees. Now tell me why I ought not to throw you out on your ear. I'm here to help Ellie. That girl's father was my dearest friend, she said, her voice tight. On his deathbed, I promised I'd look after her. And I failed. All I could do was watch Blackwood squeeze her dry. You couldn't have stopped him. And you reckon you can? One man against all his money and guns? I've faced worse odds before. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. You're confident, I'll give you that. But confidence don't stop a bullet. What's your plan, Mr. Thornton? I don't have one yet. First, I need to see what I'm up against. That's not exactly reassuring. It ain't meant to be, Caleb replied, meeting her gaze. Ma'am, I can't promise I'll win. I can only promise that I'll try, and I won't run. Running's what keeps a man alive. I ran for 4 years, he said, his voice low. It didn't keep me alive. It just made me slow at dying. Mrs. Price studied him for a long moment. You're carrying a heavy weight. She stood up. Dinner's in an hour. But you listen here, Mr. Thornton. If you give that girl hope just to snatch it away, I've got my husband's old shotgun. I may be slow, but I don't miss. Understood. Dinner was a quiet affair. You really think they'll come tonight? Ellie finally asked. Yes, 2 or 3 of them. And you'll just fight them? If I have to. You could die. Doesn't that scare you? Caleb put his fork down. Miss Ellie, I've been scared every single day for the last 4 years. Tonight's the first night I'm not. Whatever happens, this feels right. After dinner, as he headed for the door, Ellie stopped him. Be careful, she whispered. Lock this door behind me, he said, his voice softer than he intended. Don't open it for anyone but me. Then he stepped out into the cold, snowy night to wait in the shadows across from her clinic. Hours passed. Then he heard voices. 3 men appeared through the falling snow. It was Jennings, all right, and he was carrying a can of kerosene. They were here to burn the place down. Let's get this done, Jennings growled. Before what? Caleb said, stepping out from the dark. The men spun around, their eyes wide in the torchlight. You, Jennings hissed. I told you, Caleb said, his hand resting on his gun. The lady said no. A young kid with them started to draw his pistol. Don't, Caleb said, his voice quiet but cold as steel. I've put down faster men than you. You pull that iron and you're dead before it clears leather. The kid froze. Now, Caleb continued, you're going to drop those torches in that can, and you're going to go tell Blackwood that if he comes for Ellie Weston again, I'll come for him. You're just one man, Jennings stammered. I'm Caleb Thornton, he said, his voice dropping to a dead calm. I've killed 27 men. You want to make it 28? The silence was heavy. The young kid dropped his torch first, then the other man. Jennings hesitated, then let the can fall to the snow. This ain't over, he snarled. Keep telling yourself that. They vanished back into the storm. Caleb stood alone in the street, his heart pounding. For the first time in 4 long years, he truly felt alive. He stood watch until dawn. When the sun finally came up, he walked back to the boarding house. Ellie opened the door before he could knock. You're alive, she breathed. Seems so. What happened? They came. I sent them on their way. Her amber eyes searched his face. Come inside, she said softly. You must be freezing. Inside, the warmth was a shock to his system. Ellie pushed him toward a chair. I'll get coffee. Mrs. Price appeared in a shawl. Still alive, I see, she grunted, a hint of a smile on her face. They won't be back tonight, but they'll be back. Yes. And you'll be here, she stated. Yes, ma'am. I'll be here. Ellie came back with a hot cup of coffee and pressed it into his hands. Their fingers touched for a moment. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Caleb said. This is just the start. I know. She sat across from him, holding her coffee cup tight. But it is the first time in 8 long months I have felt like maybe, just maybe, I can get through this. You will, Caleb promised. I will make sure of it. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He looked at the pure exhaustion beneath her eyes and the stubborn set of her jaw. Because I spent 4 years hiding from what I did, he said quietly. But yesterday, seeing you stand up to those men, refusing to break, Something woke up inside me. Hope. I had not felt hope in a long, long time. But you reminded me what it feels like to believe things can get better. Her eyes welled up, but she did not let the tears fall. That is the kindest thing anyone has said to me in ages. It is the truth, he said. Now, we wait. Blackwood is not going to let last night go. He will send more trouble. And when he does, I will be here. She reached out and took his hand. Then so will I. For the first time in 4 years, Caleb did not feel so alone. 3 days passed in a tense quiet. Caleb never strayed far from the clinic, sleeping in short bursts with his hand always near his gun. Ellie kept working, treating folks for everything from a difficult pregnancy to a winter cough. He watched her, feeling something dangerous stir in his chest. On the 4th morning, Deputy Sam Crane found him. The man looked like he had not slept in a week. His uniform was a mess and his hands were shaking. "Thornton, we have to talk." "Not here," Crane whispered, "somewhere private." In a small, cold barn, the deputy finally spoke. "Blackwood knows everything about you. Your past, why you are here, all of it. He has been sending telegrams, asking questions. I figured as much." "You do not understand," Crane insisted. "He is not scared of you. He is excited. He wants to be the man who killed Caleb Thornton. Let him try, but he is not coming for you, not with guns. That did not work." Crane stepped closer. "He is going after everyone who has helped you, Mrs. Price, the ranchers, even the bartender. Blackwood is calling in debts and threatening families. He's making it clear that anyone who stands with you will suffer. You cannot fight him with guns, Thornton. That is what he wants. He will use the law to twist everything until you are the bad guy." "Then what do you suggest I do?" Crane hesitated, a look of shame on his face. "There might be another way," he said. "It is the water. The town's wells have been going bad for months, but it is not natural. Blackwood is poisoning them. He has men dumping something into them at night. He is making the water unsafe, so people have to buy it from him. And when Miss Weston's spring is the only clean water left, he can charge whatever he wants." Caleb finally understood. It was not just about greed. It was a strategy to control the entire valley. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I am tired," Crane said, his voice cracking. "Tired of watching this town die. Tired of being too scared to do my job. You're standing up to Blackwood. It got people talking. It gave them a little bit of hope." "I can get you proof," Crane offered. "Documents, maybe even a witness. But I need you to keep Blackwood focused on you." "How much time?" "A week, maybe less. My daughter is safe with my sister in Cheyenne. I sent her away yesterday." "All right," Caleb agreed. "Get me the proof. But Crane, if this is some kind of trick, what Blackwood threatened to do will seem like a mercy compared to what I will do to you." "It is not a trick," Crane swore, then disappeared into the snow. Caleb went straight to Ellie. He found her cleaning her medical instruments, her hands moving with a steady calm she did not feel. When he told her everything, the poisoned wells, Blackwood's real plan, and Crane's offer, her face went pale. "I knew people were getting sick," she said softly. "I thought it was just the winter. So my spring is the key to his whole plan." She gave a bitter laugh. "No wonder he has been so relentless. He wants to own the whole valley." "Crane thinks he can get proof," Caleb said. "If he does not get caught first," Ellie countered. "That is where I come in," Caleb replied. "I keep Blackwood busy. Or you get yourself killed. That is not a plan. Do you have a better one?" She paused, her eyes thoughtful. "Maybe," she said slowly. "Maybe I do. His son, Marcus Blackwood. I treated him about 6 months ago. He came to me drunk after a terrible fight with his father. Blackwood's own men had beaten him badly. He is not like his father, Caleb. He hates what is happening, but he is trapped with no money and nowhere to go. You think he would help us? I think if we offered him a real way out, he might give us everything we need. He comes to town twice a week to drink at the saloon. Tomorrow is his day." I think you can get to him. It was a huge risk. But everything was a risk. All right, he said. Tomorrow at the saloon I will talk to him. Be careful, Ellie warned. Be honest. Tell him the truth about why you are here and what we are trying to do. Tell him he can be free. Hear what you are fighting for. Let him decide for himself, and if he decides wrong, then we will deal with it together. That word, together, felt strange to Caleb. He had been alone for so long he had almost forgotten what it was like to have someone in his corner. Ellie, he started, I am grateful. Grateful that you trusted me. For not running. She looked at him, and he saw a flicker of something new in her eyes. I am not brave, she said quietly. I am just too stubborn to quit. Sounds about the same to me. For the first time, she gave a real smile. Maybe it is. In that little clinic, Caleb felt something shift inside him, something that scared him more than any man ever could. He was starting to care, and caring for someone could get them killed. The next morning, Caleb made his way to the Lucky Strike saloon well before noon. He ordered a whiskey and he waited. Marcus Blackwood showed up just after 1 o'clock. The boy looked just like his father with the same dark hair and expensive clothes. But where his father radiated pure menace, Marcus just looked desperate, like a man trying to keep his head above water. His hands were shaking as he ordered a drink. Caleb watched him put down 3 whiskeys in 15 minutes before he walked over. Is this seat taken? Marcus looked up, and you could see he knew exactly who Caleb was. You are Thornton, he said. The man causing my father so much trouble. Former bounty hunter. Mind if I sit? Marcus gave a short, bitter laugh. Would it matter if I did? He pointed to the empty chair. I have been curious about the man who is not afraid of Garrett Blackwood. Up close, Caleb could see the faded bruises on the boy's jaw. Your father do that? He asked. Marcus's face went cold. My father does not get his own hands dirty. That is what men like Jennings are for. I have met Jennings, Caleb said. So I heard. You scared him good. First time I have ever seen that man afraid. But your father is not scared. No, he is not, Marcus said, draining his glass. He is pleased. Says you are going to be good sport. My father does not tell me anything. I am just the disappointment, the drunk. He keeps me around because it looks bad for a man like him to have his only son running wild. So I stay and I drink. What would you do if you could leave? If you could just walk away from all of it? Marcus froze. That is not possible. My father would... I'm not asking what your father would do, Caleb said. I'm asking what you would do. Marcus stared into his glass for a long time. I would go east, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Boston, maybe. Somewhere with libraries and theaters. I would study art. Something beautiful that my father would hate. That sounds like a good dream. It is just a dream, he said. What if it did not have to be? Caleb leaned in close. Your father has made enemies. Enemies who could bring him down if they had some help from the inside. You want me to betray my own father? I want you to make a choice. Help him keep hurting people, or help us stop him. It is never that simple. If I helped you and he found out, then you would need to be somewhere he could not reach you. I can try to make that happen. You know what my father once told me? Marcus said, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He said, the only thing that matters is power. He said good men and bad men are the same, but the bad ones are willing to do what it takes. Do you believe that? I used to. But then I saw Miss Weston stand up to him, watched her refuse to break. And I realized my father was wrong. Some things matter more. Like what? Like dignity. And being able to look at yourself in the mirror. Are you having trouble with that? Every single day. Caleb knew that feeling all too well. I cannot promise you will survive this, he said. But I can promise you a chance. A real chance to be the man you want to be, not the one your father made you. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. There is a meeting tomorrow night. My father and his men. They are planning to finish this once and for all. Where? At his mansion, in the study. 8 o'clock. Can you get me in? I can leave a servant's entrance unlocked in the back. After that, you are on your own. That is enough, Caleb said. As he turned to leave, Marcus grabbed his arm. Thornton, if this is some kind of trap— It is not, Caleb said. How do I know? Because I know what it is like to hate yourself so much you would do anything to change. Marcus nodded slowly. Tomorrow night. Do not be late. Caleb walked out into the dusty street, his mind racing. This was his chance, but it was a massive risk. If he was wrong about Marcus, he was walking straight into his own grave. He had to tell Ellie. He found her at the boarding house, her face etched with worry. He is in, Caleb said. There is a meeting tomorrow. He is going to get me inside. Her expression did not match the good news. Caleb, are you sure about this? No, but it is the best chance we have got. And if it is a trap, then I will deal with it. She turned away from him. I am scared, she said so quietly he could barely hear her. I am scared of losing everything. And I am scared of losing you. Before he could speak, she looked right at him. I needed you to know that, in case you do not come back. Caleb crossed the room and took her trembling hands. I am going to come back. You cannot promise that. I can promise I will try with everything I have got. She looked up at him, her eyes full of tears she refused to let fall. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You could leave right now. You know why. Say it, she urged. He took a deep breath. Because I care about you, Ellie. Because when I am with you, I do not feel like the killer I used to be. I feel like someone who might be worth something. You are not a monster, she said. Then he told her. He told her about the boy in the canyon, only 17 years old, the wrong face on a wanted poster, dead in the dirt from Caleb's bullet. When he finished the ugly story, the room was silent. You did not know, she said finally. Does that matter? He is still gone. It matters to me. She squeezed his hands. You made a terrible mistake. But you are trying to make it right now. You are trying to be better. That is more than most people ever do. How can you forgive me for that? It is not my place to forgive you, she said. She brought his knuckles to her lips and kissed them. I am choosing to see the man you are now, she said softly. And I like him very much. For the first time in 4 hard years, something frozen deep inside Caleb Thornton started to thaw. Ellie, I do not. She put a finger to his lips. Do not say it. Not yet. Wait until this is all over. Just promise you will come back to me. He walked out into the bitter cold. But her words made him feel warm. The old Caleb never came back for anyone, but this new man had a reason to fight. He left Mrs. Price's boarding house just after 7 o'clock, moving like a shadow through the snow. The Blackwood mansion sat high on the hill, its windows like watching eyes. Caleb found the back door Marcus had mentioned and slipped inside the warm, stuffy house. He followed the sound of men talking until he reached a study. Peeking through a crack in the door, he saw them all. Garrett Blackwood sat behind a huge desk. Deputy Sam Crane stood near the wall, trying to make himself small. Blackwood's voice was smooth and cold. He has agreed to arrest Miss Weston tomorrow, he said. The charges are fake, but they will hold her. And when Thornton interferes, Blackwood said with a small, cruel smile, Deputy Crane will be forced to shoot him. A tragic accident. Caleb had heard all he needed. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. Every man in the room grabbed for his gun. Only Blackwood stayed calm. Mr. Thornton, he said, how good of you to join our little party. Caleb's eyes locked onto the deputy. Crane, you sold us out. The deputy was pale as a sheet. Thornton, I did not have a choice. He threatened my family. I do not care what he threatened, Caleb said. He knew he was in a trap, so he played his last card. It is over, Blackwood. Right now, a rider is heading to the marshal in Cheyenne. He has proof of every crime you have ever committed. For just a second, Blackwood's confidence cracked. You are bluffing. Am I? The silence was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kill him, Blackwood finally screamed. Just then, the door flew open again. It was Marcus Blackwood, and he held a shotgun aimed right at his own father. "Nobody move," he said. "Son!" Blackwood hissed, his voice like ice. "What do you think you are doing?" "I am ending this," Marcus said, his eyes full of pain. "I am ending what you have done to this town, and to me." Caleb used the moment to draw his own pistol, aiming it at Blackwood's toughest man. "Crane," he said, his voice low. "You are going to arrest Garrett Blackwood for his crimes." The deputy looked like he was about to be sick. "Do the right thing, deputy," Marcus urged him. "For once in your miserable life, do the right thing." "My name is Garrett Blackwood," he said, his voice as steady as a rock. "You are under arrest." Blackwood's eyes burned with a deep hatred. "You will surely regret this." "Maybe so," Caleb answered. "But I will be able to look at myself in the mirror." They marched Blackwood out into the biting cold. The long ride back to town was silent and full of tension. But seeing that man finally locked behind bars gave Caleb a feeling he had not felt in years. It was hope. Ellie was right there waiting for him on the porch. She ran and threw herself into his arms, crying with relief. "You are alive. I told you I would come back. I did not believe you." "I know," he said, as she checked his face for injuries. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Blackwood is in jail," Caleb told her. "It is over, at least for now." She buried her face in his chest, a mix of sobs and laughter. "I am here now," he said, holding her tight. "And I promise you I am not leaving again." For the first time in 4 long years, Caleb Thornton felt like he had finally come home, but that peace lasted for exactly 18 hours. The next morning, a fancy black stagecoach rolled into Silver Creek, the kind you would see in Denver, not a small Wyoming town. The man who stepped out wore a suit that cost a fortune and had the cold eyes of a rattlesnake. "That is got to be Blackwood's lawyer," Mrs. Price said quietly. "He must have paid a bundle to get him here so fast." Caleb dropped the firewood and hurried to the jail. Deputy Crane was at his desk, and his face was pale with defeat. "The lawyer is here," Crane said before Caleb could even speak. "He has got a stack of legal papers that I do not understand. He says if I do not release Blackwood by noon, I will be the one sitting in a cell. He has already sent telegraph messages to every judge and governor who owes Blackwood a favor. He says our evidence is not enough to hold him." Before Caleb could answer, the lawyer walked right through the door. Up close, he looked even more dangerous. A small man with a smile that never reached his eyes. "I am Harrison Webb," the lawyer said, his voice like silk covering steel. "I am representing Mr. Garrett Blackwood, and I trust you have seen my papers." "Your client poisoned this town's water," Caleb stated plainly. "Allegedly," Webb shot back. "And you, Mr. Thornton, are a former bounty hunter with a violent history. I would warn you not to interfere with my client's legal rights. Any trouble from you will result in serious criminal charges. I have a very long memory, and I have very sharp teeth." "Is that a threat?" Caleb asked. "It is a promise," Webb answered with a cold smile. Crane looked at Caleb, desperate and afraid. "Let him go," Caleb said quietly. "What?" "Release him. Let Blackwood think he has won the fight. It will buy us time to find the real evidence we need to put him away for good." Crane hesitated, then slowly nodded, his hands shaking as he grabbed the keys to the cell. An hour later, Garrett Blackwood walked out of the jail like a king. As his coach passed by, he looked right at Caleb and smiled. "He's going to come after us now," Ellie said, suddenly at Caleb's side, harder than he ever has before. "I know," Caleb replied. "That is why I have a plan to protect you and your property." He turned to face her directly. "Marry me." Ellie was stunned into silence. "Caleb, that is insane. We have known each other for less than a week." "I know," he said, taking her cold hands in his. "But as your husband, Blackwood cannot touch your land or your clinic without going through me first. It is the only way to shield you. Blackwood thinks he can take everything from you, and the law won't lift a finger to help. But a marriage changes the whole ball game. See, if you're my wife, your land becomes our land. Your fight becomes my fight. Suddenly, it's not one woman against a bully. It is two people with the means to stand their ground. I have savings, enough to pay off your bank debt right now. If Blackwood cannot hold foreclosure over your head, he loses his best weapon. I am asking you for a chance, Ellie. A chance to stand with you, to fight alongside you. I am tired of being alone. I want to stand with someone. I want to stand with you. A single tear rolled down her cheek. If I say yes, she whispered, there is no turning back. We would be tied together for good. I would give up 1,000 mountains for one chance at something real. Ellie's hands trembled in his. Well then, I must be as crazy as you are. Is that a yes? It is a yes. He pulled her close, his heart pounding. We will do this right, he promised. But first we have to actually get married and Blackwood will try to stop us. Then we had better be quick about it. They found Reverend Thomas at the church, who looked at them with wide eyes. A marriage? He asked. Today, right now, if you can manage it. Caleb told him. That is highly unusual. There are customs, announcements. Reverend, we do not have time for customs, Ellie said, her voice full of urgency. Garrett Blackwood is trying to destroy my life. The only way to stop him is for Caleb and me to marry today. Before he finds out and interferes. The Reverend hesitated. Marriage is a sacred bond, Miss Weston, not just a business deal. I know, Ellie said, taking Caleb's hand, but sometimes sacred things start in strange ways. I am just hoping for a chance. Reverend Thomas looked at Caleb. And you, son? What are your intentions? To protect her, to stand by her, and to be the man she deserves. The Reverend finally nodded slowly. Very well. I will marry you, but you will need witnesses. Mrs. Price, Ellie said right away. And Deputy Crane. He deserves a shot at redemption, too. An hour later, they stood before the altar. Ellie wore a simple borrowed dress, looking like an angel in the winter light. Mrs. Price was already crying, and Deputy Crane stood stiff as a board. As Reverend Thomas began to speak, the church doors slammed open. Garrett Blackwood stood there, flanked by his men. "Stop this farce immediately!" he boomed. Caleb's hand instinctively went to his side, but he was not armed. Not in a church. "Mr. Blackwood," the Reverend said, his voice steady, "this is a house of God." "I have authority everywhere in this valley," Blackwood shot back, striding down the aisle. "And I will not allow this marriage." "You cannot stop it," Ellie said, her voice shaking but firm. "We are both of legal age." Blackwood just laughed. "Miss Weston, when will you learn that I am the law in Silver Creek? The bank answers to me, the sheriff answers to me. Not anymore." Marcus Blackwood stepped out from behind the altar, holding a stack of papers. "These documents prove that you have been poisoning the town's water supply." Blackwood's face turned white as a sheet. "Marcus, my own son." "I am done being your pawn, Father," Marcus said. "These papers are already on their way to the territorial marshal. By tomorrow, everyone will know the truth." The church was dead silent. Blackwood stood there, frozen with rage. Then one of his men, Jennings, reached for his gun. But Deputy Crane was faster. He drew his weapon and stood between them and the altar. "Nobody move," Crane's voice rang out. "First man to draw gets a bullet. You are outnumbered, Deputy," Jennings sneered. "Maybe so," Crane replied. "But I will take at least 2 of you with me." Blackwood raised a hand, stopping his men. "This is not over," he said, his eyes burning into Caleb's. "You have won the battle, Mr. Thornton, but the war is far from over." "Then bring it on," Caleb said, his voice cold as ice. Blackwood turned and walked out. The church doors slammed shut behind him. "Finish it," Caleb said to the Reverend. "Marry us now, before anything else can happen." The rest of the ceremony was a blur of hurried words and vows. "You may kiss your bride," the Reverend finally said. Caleb looked at Ellie, and for the first time they both smiled a real smile. He kissed her, soft and full of promise. "Mrs. Thornton," he whispered. "Mr. Thornton," she replied. "Now what?" "Now we survive." Marcus approached them after they signed the papers. "What you did was brave," Ellie told him. "I should have done it years ago," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "My father is not going to give up. Those documents will take days to reach Cheyenne. He will come for you both tonight, with everything he has." "How many men?" "At least 10, maybe more." "Can we get out of town?" "The passes are blocked by snow. There is no way out until spring." They were trapped. "There might be a way," Deputy Crane said. "Fort McKinney is 15 miles south. I know a trail through the mountains. It is dangerous in this weather, but I can make it. You know this trail? I grew up here. I know every path in these hills. Give me a fast horse, and in 3 hours I can reach the fort and bring back soldiers. It might be enough to keep Blackwood from killing you in your sleep." "After everything, you would do that?" Ellie asked. "Mrs. Thornton, I have failed this town for 3 years. Let me do this. Let me finally be the man I should have been." Caleb looked at Ellie and she nodded. "Go," Caleb said, "and ride as fast as you can." "The clinic was a death trap," Caleb said plainly. "Too many windows." Mrs. Price offered a better idea. "The boarding house. My husband built it with a stone foundation and thick walls. It was their best shot. They moved fast, grabbing their weapons. Mrs. Price had a shotgun, and Marcus had a rifle." Caleb checked his Colt revolver. 6 shots. He took another pistol from the clinic. That made 12 bullets against at least 10 men. The odds were not good. He turned to Ellie as they fortified the doors. "You should leave. Take Mrs. Price and get to a nearby ranch." Ellie grabbed his arm, her eyes full of fire. "No. I am your wife now. I am not going anywhere." "I am trying to keep you alive," he argued. "Then let me fight beside you," she answered. "I am not some delicate flower. This is not about blood. It is about 10 armed men who want us dead." "All the more reason for me to stay," she said. She set her jaw. "Teach me how to shoot." Caleb looked at this stubborn, fierce woman and knew there was no point in arguing. "All right," he said, "but you follow my orders." He spent the next hour teaching her how to aim and how to breathe. She was a natural. As the sun went down, he looked out the window. "Ellie, I need to tell you something." His voice was low. "If this goes wrong tonight, if I do not make it, you must run. You take Mrs. Price and Marcus and you get out of this valley. Start over somewhere new." "I am not leaving you," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I married you because when I'm with you, I feel like I have a chance at something real. A chance to finally be happy." Caleb's heart ached. "Then we will give ourselves that chance," he said. He kissed her, a kiss full of fear and hope for a future they might not get. When they broke apart, she smiled. "We are going to survive this. Promise me." "I promise," he said. It was the second promise he had made her, and he planned to keep them both. Night fell like a stone. 2 hours later, Marcus called out from the back. "They are coming." Torchlight danced in the snow as a dozen men surrounded the house. "Stay calm," Caleb ordered. "Make every shot count." A voice boomed from the darkness. "Thornton, come out and face us, or we will burn the place down." "Try it," Caleb yelled back. "First man with a torch gets a bullet." Then a colder voice spoke. It was Blackwood himself. "Mr. Thornton, you have caused me a great deal of trouble. Did you really think I would let that stand?" "You are a bully who is used to scaring people who cannot fight back," Caleb said, aiming through the window. "Perhaps," Blackwood replied. "But if you shoot me, my men will kill everyone in that house. Is your new bride's life worth that chance?" Caleb hesitated. Blackwood's voice dripped with satisfaction. "So, here is my offer. Surrender yourself, and I will let the others go free." "Do not listen to him," Ellie whispered fiercely. "He is lying." Caleb knew they were right, but for a moment he considered it. Then Ellie took his hand. "We stand together," she said. "That is what we promised." He looked at his wife, ready to die beside him. Together, he agreed. He turned back to the window. "No deal, Blackwood." "Very well," Blackwood said. "Burn it." Torches flew through the air and flames began to eat at the dry wood. The room filled with smoke. "We will be burned alive," Mrs. Price coughed. They were trapped. Death by fire, or death by bullets. Then Caleb saw it. A trapdoor near the kitchen, hidden by a rug. "There," he pointed. "Everyone down now." They scrambled down the stairs into the darkness of the root cellar. Caleb paused at the top. "What are you doing?" Ellie demanded. "Buying time," he said. He slammed the door shut and dragged a heavy cabinet over it. He then moved through the burning building, staying low and firing out the windows. He wanted to keep Blackwood's men distracted. The heat was becoming unbearable. The ceiling groaned above him. Caleb crawled to the trapdoor, shoved the cabinet away, and dropped into the cellar. It was empty. For a terrible second, his heart stopped. Then he saw a dark tunnel at the back of the cellar. It was an old mining tunnel. They had escaped. Relief flooded through him as the house started to collapse. He ran into the darkness. He followed the tunnel until he saw a faint winter light ahead. He came out behind the church, gasping for air. The boarding house was a tower of flame. Then Ellie ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "You are alive! Oh, you are alive!" He looked down at a gash on his arm he had not even felt. "We need to move," he said. "They will start searching for us soon." "Where do we go?" Marcus asked. Caleb had a wild idea. "The mansion," he said. Everyone stared at him. "You want to go to my father's house?" Marcus asked. "It is the last place he will expect," Caleb explained. "He will be busy here. The mansion will be empty." Marcus considered it, then pulled a key from his pocket. "My father never knew I made a copy." They slipped through the snow-covered streets to the servants' entrance of the dark, silent mansion. Inside it was cold and empty. For now they were safe, hiding right under the nose of the man who wanted them dead. They found a defensible storage room in the back of the house with only one door. "Now we wait," Caleb said. Hours passed in the deep cold. Ellie leaned against him and asked quietly, "Do you regret it? Marrying me?" "Not for a single second," he answered. "Especially not now." He told her about his dream of building a small house on his land in the mountains. A place for just the two of them, to build something real that would last. "That sounds like a dream," she whispered. "We are going to make it through this, are not we?" "Yes," he promised. "I promise." Just then the door burst open. Garrett Blackwood stood there holding a gun. "Found you." Caleb instantly shoved Ellie behind him, shielding her with his body. "Do not move." Blackwood's voice was like ice. "One more step and I will put a bullet in your new wife." He let out a cold laugh. "Did you really think you could hide from me inside my own house?" "Father, please stop this," Marcus said, stepping forward with his hands raised. Blackwood turned the gun on his son. "You betrayed your own blood, Marcus." "For what?" "For my soul," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "Something you sold off a long time ago." "Sentimental fool," Blackwood snarled as his finger tightened on the trigger. But Blackwood just laughed, a hollow, ugly sound. He began to insult Marcus's dead mother, calling her weak and worthless. That was the last straw. As Marcus took a step forward, his father shot him in the shoulder. The boy collapsed, clutching the wound. Blackwood turned the smoking gun toward Caleb. "You see," he gloated, "I own the judge. I own the sheriff. I will tell them you broke into my home and I was just defending myself. It will be my word against a dead man's." "You are wrong," Caleb said. "The people of this town are scared, but they are not broken. Fear does not last forever." Before Blackwood could reply, Caleb lunged. They crashed to the floor, two men locked in a desperate struggle for the gun. The room filled with shouts. One of Blackwood's men tried to help his boss, but Marcus, bleeding against the wall, kept his shotgun aimed right at him. "Stay back," he growled through the pain. Blackwood was older, but he fought with the strength of a cornered animal. He broke Caleb's grip and shoved the gun against his ribs. "Goodbye, Mr. Thornton." A different shot cracked through the air. Blackwood stiffened. He looked down at the red stains spreading across his shirt, then stared at his son in disbelief. Marcus held a small pistol in his good hand, which was shaking badly. "I told you," Marcus whispered, "not to talk about my mother." Garrett Blackwood fell to the floor, and the long, dark night was finally over. It was over. Then he heard the horses. "Caleb!" Mrs. Price's voice was sharp. He dragged himself to the window and saw a dozen riders carrying blazing torches. It was Blackwood's men. "We have to go now," Caleb said. Ellie, her hands slick with Marcus's blood, shook her head. "He cannot travel. I will not leave him." They had one gun against a dozen men. It was hopeless. Then a distant bugle call grew louder, followed by the thunder of hooves. It was the cavalry. Deputy Crane had made it. A military doctor worked alongside Ellie to save Marcus. Deputy Crane showed up, looking worn out but triumphant. "The commander believed me," he explained. "He was just waiting for a good reason to go after Blackwood." Crane said Marcus would live and was going to testify against his own father. As for Blackwood, he was dead. Marcus killed him in self-defense. With Marcus's testimony and the documents he had, Blackwood's whole rotten operation was finally finished for good. Caleb found Ellie in the kitchen. She looked bone-tired, but she was smiling. "Marcus is going to make it," she told him. She knew it would be a hard road for him, having shot his own father. "Will you talk to him when he is well enough?" she asked. "You understand that kind of burden." Caleb thought of the guilt he had carried for 4 long years, the darkness that nearly ate him alive. "Yes," he said, "I will talk to him." Ellie then saw the deep gash on Caleb's arm. "You are hurt," she said, her nurse instincts taking over completely. "Sit down. For once in your life, let someone else take care of you." As she gently cleaned the wound, Caleb felt a weight he did not know he was carrying finally lift. They were alive, and they were married. He took her hand, stopping her. "Ellie, when I proposed, I did not tell you the entire truth. I wanted to marry you," he said, "not just for protection, but because when I am with you, I feel like a better man. Somewhere on this hard road, I fell in love with you." A tear traced a path down her cheek. "You fool," she whispered. "Do you think I did not know? I have been falling for you since you stepped into that alley." She told him how he made her feel worth saving after being alone for so long. Then she kissed him, fierce and full of promise. "We will build something real together." In the following days, the full truth of Blackwood's evil came to light. From his hospital bed, Marcus told the investigators everything. Afterward, he quietly announced he was changing his name to Marcus Weston, if Mrs. Thornton did not mind. With tears in her eyes, Ellie told him she did not mind at all. Blackwood's lands were divided among the families he had cheated, and the territorial marshal handed Ellie the deed to her clinic. "It is yours," he said. "No more debt." Caleb and Ellie stood before Reverend Thomas again, this time for a blessing. "You two have walked through fire," the Reverend said. "Face the road ahead together, and you can overcome anything." They walked out of the church holding hands. "What now?" Ellie asked, squinting in the bright morning. "Now we go home," Caleb replied, "to our ranch." She looked up at him, her eyes full of love. "I want it. I want to build a life with you." As they prepared to leave, Ellie explained her plan. Mrs. Price would watch the clinic, and Marcus, once recovered, wanted to study medicine. "My real home is with you," she said. At the edge of town, Deputy Crane met them. The mayor had offered him the sheriff's job. "Thank you," Crane said, shaking Caleb's hand. "You made me remember what this badge is supposed to mean." Caleb nodded. "Take care of these folks." And with that, they rode on toward the mountains and home. They battled through treacherous ice and biting wind. After 2 brutal days, they finally saw it from a ridge. Caleb's ranch, their home. Smoke curled from the cabin's chimney, a welcome sight. "It's beautiful," Ellie said, her breath fogging in the cold air. Caleb smiled. "Just you wait for the wildflowers in spring." That night, safe and warm by the fire, Ellie admitted she was still waiting for disaster to strike. Caleb pulled her close. "Nothing else is going wrong," he promised. "We have already been through the worst of it. From now on, we just live." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Tell me about the future you see for us." Caleb looked into the fire. "I see us building this place. I see us adding rooms for, well, for when we need them." He looked at her. his meaning clear. I want a family with you, Ellie. I want to grow old right here on this land with you. Tears of joy streamed down her face. I want that too, she whispered. All of it. He kissed her then, a kiss full of promise. Then that is what we will build, he said, starting tonight. Spring arrived 3 months later, melting the mountain snow, but Caleb couldn't shake his unease. He confessed to Ellie that he was still waiting for the other shoe to drop, unsure how to just accept happiness. Ellie took his hand. You learn to trust the good things day by day, she told him gently. You earned this peace, Caleb. You deserve it. The boy you were back in that canyon would want you to truly live. She knew enough about his past to understand his ghosts, and it only made her love him more. Now come inside, she said, squeezing his hand. Mrs. Price and Marcus are visiting today, and there is something I need to tell you. Inside, with breakfast on the table, Ellie watched him with a look he could not quite understand. You are scaring me, he said softly. She took a deep breath. Caleb, you remember when you said you wanted a family with me? A house full of children? Of course, he said. Well, she reached out and took his hand. It is happening. Caleb's mind went completely blank. What? I am pregnant, she said, her voice trembling just a little. For a moment he could not speak or even breathe. Say something, please, Ellie whispered. He finally found his voice. I am going to be a father. He stood so fast his chair clattered to the floor. He crossed the room and pulled her into a fierce, loving hug. Thank you, he choked out, his voice breaking with emotion. Thank you for this. The tough bounty hunter who had faced down 27 men wept with joy in his wife's arms. The doctor figures late fall, she told him. We have months to get ready. Just then they heard horses. It was Mrs. Price and Marcus arriving with supplies. Well, the older woman demanded as she climbed down, did you tell him yet? Ellie blushed. Just this morning. Mrs. Price hugged Caleb tight. Congratulations, you big fool. I knew it the second she started refusing her morning coffee. You have been crying, she noted, studying his face. He nodded. Happy tears. Good, she said. You deserve them. While the women went inside, Caleb spoke with Marcus. The boy admitted he still heard his father's cruel voice in his head calling him weak. It gets easier, Caleb promised him. Those old voices fade and new ones that care about you, take their place. You are not your father, Marcus. I know, but sometimes. Caleb put a hand on his shoulder. You stood against your own blood for what was right. That is not weakness, son. That is the very definition of strength. Marcus looked at him, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Thank you, he said, for giving me a second chance. That is what family does, Caleb replied. Just then, Mrs. Price called out from the cabin, telling them to come help with the supplies. Caleb smiled. They were two men who had been broken by their pasts, but here in the morning light they were healing. They were building a new life. They were becoming a family. With Sheriff Crane in charge, the fear that had choked Silver Creek was finally gone, replaced by something that felt a whole lot like hope. Over dinner, Mrs. Price mentioned the town was building a real school. Then she said, they want to name it after your father, the Weston School. Ellie's fork just clattered onto her plate. Tears streamed down her face as Caleb found her hand under the table. Mrs. Price's voice got real soft. He would have been so proud of you, Ellie. Then, with a knowing glance at Ellie's stomach, she added, and he would have loved being a grandfather. After dinner, Caleb walked Mrs. Price to her horse. Out of Ellie's earshot, she told him, You carry too much weight, Caleb Thornton. Let yourself be happy. Later, Ellie slipped her hand into his. This life we're building, she said. It's real. He pulled her close, admitting he kept waiting to wake up from it all. As the months passed, he built onto their cabin, getting ready for the baby. But Caleb was always hovering, and one day Ellie finally snapped. I'm pregnant, not dying. I need a partner, not a guardian. He confessed he was terrified of losing her, of something going wrong. He was terrified of finally being happy, only to have it ripped away. The baby decided to come on a cold October night. Ellie woke him with a gasp. "Caleb, it's time." He was a mess of panic, lighting lamps and heating water while she told him to stay calm through gritted teeth. The next 12 hours were the longest of his life. He held her hand and whispered encouragement until his voice was raw. Just as dawn broke, the doctor arrived. With one last push and a piercing scream from Ellie, a new cry filled the cabin. It was a girl, a perfect, healthy girl with her mother's amber eyes. "What should we name her?" Ellie asked. Caleb looked at his daughter and knew. "Grace," he said. "Her name is Grace." The years that followed weren't always easy, but they were full. Grace was followed by a son, Thomas, and then twin girls, Sarah and Rose. The cabin grew into a homestead, a place known all over as warm and welcoming. Caleb never forgot the past that had driven him into the mountains, but he learned to carry it differently. It was not a punishment, but a reminder to be a good man. When Grace was 15, he told her the whole story. He told her about the mistakes he'd made, and about the woman who pulled him back into the light. "Does it still hurt?" she asked him. "Sometimes," Caleb admitted. "But your mother taught me how to be happy day by day, and that made all the difference." The town doctor assured Caleb Thornton the baby was healthy and due any day, but Caleb couldn't quiet the feeling that something would go wrong. Sure enough, one October night, his wife Ellie woke him with a sharp gasp. It was time. A wave of terror washed over him, but he pushed it down, heating water and sending for help. Through gritted teeth, Ellie told him to be calm. He tried, but the next 12 hours felt like a lifetime. He held her hand, telling her she was the strongest woman he had ever known. She managed a faint laugh and called him her fool, just like always. The doctor finally arrived as the sun began to rise. A moment later, a small, strong cry cut through the morning air. The doctor announced it was a healthy girl. He placed the baby with her mother's beautiful amber eyes into Ellie's arms. Caleb looked at his daughter and knew none of the names they had picked would do. "Her name is Grace," he said softly. Ellie smiled through her tears and agreed it was perfect. The years that followed were not always simple. They faced tough winters and long droughts. But the good days were far more plentiful than the bad. Their little cabin grew into a proper house, and the Thornton homestead became known all over as a place of warmth and hospitality. They had a son, Thomas, and then twin girls, Sarah and Rose. Caleb never forgot the ghosts of his past, but he used that weight as a reminder to be a better man. When Grace was 15 years old, he finally told her about the terrible mistake that had sent him into the mountains. She asked if the memory still caused him pain. "Sometimes," he told her honestly. But it was a different kind of hurt now. He explained that he had learned to live with it because he had found something worth living for. He looked at his daughter and said, "I found your mother, and then I found all of you." 20 years after that first winter, Caleb and Ellie sat on their porch, their own children now grown. She playfully reminded him of how he had demanded she marry him. He chuckled, admitting it was hardly a story for the ages. She took his hand and told him she would say yes again in a heartbeat, no matter the reason. "This life with you is the best thing that ever happened to me," she said. "That was the best trade I ever made," he replied. After a quiet moment, Ellie asked if he had any regrets. He thought about the man he used to be and the long road that led him here. "Not a single one," he said with absolute certainty. "I love you, Caleb," she whispered. "I love you too, Ellie. Always." The man who rode into Silver Creek all those years ago was broken and running, convinced he deserved nothing but loneliness. Instead, he found a woman with fire in her spirit and a community that needed him. He found the strength to face his own demons. He found his way home. As Ellie slept peacefully on his shoulder, Caleb knew he would spend the rest of his life feeling grateful. He had ridden into town for basic supplies and had left with everything that truly mattered.